Hey y'all, Melissa here with you today, and today's project is underwear. Panties, skivvies, whatever you want to call them, that's what we're sewing today. Now, I will confess that I used to think that sewing your own underwear was dumb. And here's the reason that I came around to it. One, it's pretty easy. It's a really easy pattern. But mostly, two, it's a great way to use up knit scraps. Like you sewed up a t-shirt, you have a little bit left over. You can even, if you wanted to, you could mix and match on these. So I've got a pattern. That link is in the description that you're gonna need to go check it out. And then we'll come back here and I'll show you how to sew these. We're gonna be doing 3 different treatments for the waistband and legs. We're gonna be doing fold over elastic, lingerie elastic, and then just regular elastic turned under. So 3 different styles, all one pattern. Go get it, and then I'll see you back at the camera. Okay, let's talk supplies. For each pair that you are making, you're gonna need a front, a back, and 2 of the gussets. And then you're also going to need something to finish the leg bands with. So I've got a few options here. You can use regular 3/8 or 1/4 inch elastic. You can use, they sell like stretch lace and lingerie elastic. You can use either of those. You can also use fold over elastic. And I am going to show you all 3 of these methods because each of them is a little bit different. I do want to note though with the fold over elastic, I'm going to want to cut. You can see the difference here on this pair. With the fold over elastic, you want to cut off where the seam allowances, where the elastic bands would be going. And that's because these are going to go right to the edge. These methods are going to turn some of the fabric, so you need that extra seam allowance around the waistband and the leg bands. But with the fold over elastic, you don't. So you want to cut it off on the leg bands and on the waistband. Do not cut it on the side seams or the seams where you're going to sew to the gusset. Let's get started constructing these. So what you want to do first, we're going to take the front and we're going to take the gusset, and you want to line up the narrower end of the gusset with the bottom of the front piece, and then flip the whole thing over, both pieces. They're right sides together. You want to take the other gussets. You're making like a gusset sandwich here. And on this one, we've got right side of the gusset to the wrong side of the front. And once you have your little sandwich there, the front between the 2 gussets, you can pin if you'd like, but you're gonna stitch using that 1/4 inch seam allowance right across there. So let me go ahead and do that, and then we will show you the next step. Okay, once you have gone ahead and you have sewn your little gusset sandwich, use a stretch stitch to sew that. And if you need some extra help on knit fabrics or stretch stitches, check the description below. I've got some links to some other videos that will help you out with those topics. Once we've sewn the gusset sandwich, you want to take the back side of the panties and you want to place it right sides together with the gusset that is facing out. The one that's right sides out from the front. And then just kind of hold that together with your hands or throw a pin on it. But what you're going to want to do is take the whole shebang and roll up those front part of the panties, roll up the back part, and then take this other gusset and you're gonna roll it all around. So what you've done is you've got another little gusset sandwich here of the back portion of the panties. And once you know which edges are going together, you need to line them up a lot more nicely than I did to begin with. So you've got your 3 layers there, and this curve on the back is a little more pronounced than the one on the front. So what I like to do, because you're sewing a convex curve to a concave curve, what you want to do is match up the ends first and then go and make the middle match. Because these pieces do not match along the edge, they match on the seam lines, which is where they need to match because that's the part getting sewn together. Also, because these only have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you really want to make sure that you've got all those raw edges aligned nice and evenly. And I like to stick a pin on the middle. And then you're going to go ahead and go stitch that. And then there's going to be some magic here to get all your raw edges inside and not any of them exposed in this area. Let me show you how to do that when we get back to the camera. Okay, I've gone ahead and sewn my little gusset sandwich for the back, and now here's where the magic happens. Take either the front or the back, it doesn't matter, but pull and turn everything right side out, and now what you have are no exposed seams on the right side and no exposed seams on the inside of your garment. Next step is the easy one here. You're going to fold the whole thing right sides together, and you want to match up the edges here at the hips. Now you'll notice that the seams on these are shifted a little bit forward. They're not right on the side, so you will have to match those raw edges, but the pieces won't lay flat. You want to sew these two seams with a stretch stitch. Let's do that. Okay, side seams are sewn. You can also do these with a serger if you prefer, but I didn't feel like I needed to here. So the next step here is going to be to start adding the leg and waistbands. And I'm going to show you how to do the waistband, but just know that you do the same thing with the leg bands. And we're going to go through a couple of different methods here because, as I said, the different types of elastic, each of them is a little different with how you apply it. So the very first step for all of these though is going to be to quarter the pants. You want to match the two seams to each other, fold them like this, and then mark your center front with a pin and mark your center back with a pin, and then open up, match those two pins to each other, and that way you can mark the side quarter edge. And then you want to take your preferred finish method. So for this one, we're going to be using regular elastic that's going to get turned to the inside. You want to start by sewing your elastic into a band. Just slightly overlap and then use a zigzag stitch. Okay, sometimes it can be tricky to sew your bands together. So because it's narrow elastic and it wants to get sucked down into the hole on the throat plate. So I'm going to show you a trick. You can use tissue paper or tearaway embroidery stabilizer, and if you use that, you can put that behind the elastic, and then you'll just overlap your elastic like a quarter inch and go ahead and zigzag away, and it'll feed much more smoothly. And then after you get your band sewn into a loop, just tear the stabilizer right off the back or the tissue paper right off the back, and there's your loop. And you want to quarter your band as well. So fold it in half, mark pins, and then match those pins to each other and mark the other two folds. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to match those. So I'm just going to match the raw edges here, and I want to match one pin with another, starting at the center back, and then I'm going to match the next two pins together and pin the elastic. And make sure you're not twisting the elastic as you do this. You'll also notice that you really are barely going to have to stretch the elastic to get it to fit. And that is because there's some negative ease in the pattern, because you'll have to stretch these to put them on. And so you don't need like a whole lot of extra stretch in the elastic from the negative ease that's already provided in the pattern and the fabric. Alright, match that last pin, check again to make sure your elastic is not twisted, and then I'm going to meet you over at the sewing machine to show you how I zigzag this in. Okay, I've got set up for a zigzag stitch, and I want to keep the edge of my elastic lined up with the edge of my fabric. I'm going to get right to where one of those pins is, place my needle, and then remove the pin. And then what I want to do is I'm going to stretch the elastic gently just so that it lays flat against the fabric. And I'm going to zigzag. When you reach the seams Make sure to press them open flat. If you sewed them with a regular machine, if you used a serger, press them to one side. I prefer to press them towards the back if I have to do one side or the other. Okay, we have stitched the elastic to the wrong side, and now all we're going to do is fold that elastic again to the inside and do another zigzag stitch around. So now we fold that elastic again to the inside, and this time when I set up my zigzag, I prefer to go over the edge. So I set where the raw edge of fabric and elastic is going to hit the middle of my presser foot, and then the zigzag, one zig's on the elastic and one is off. Okay, let's take a look at how to do the lingerie elastic. Now this is really similar to the finish we just did. The difference is that I am going to pin these wrong sides together like that. So this is the wrong side. You can see my seam allowances here. And I've pinned the lingerie elastic. This is right side up. The wrong side is against it. And you want the fabric to be just a teeny bit inside of the elastic, because what we're going to do is we're going to go zigzag that on, and the next step will be to turn it and zigzag again, and that means that the raw edges are going to get hidden under the elastic, and then this pretty elastic will be on the outside of the panties. So let's go over to the sewing machine and we will do that. Okay, we are going to zigzag this lingerie elastic on. Now with the lingerie elastic method, I actually like to have the elastic against my presser foot and the fabric facing up so I can see the right side. And I do that so that I can make sure that I've got just a teeny bit of elastic extending beyond the fabric. It's easier for me to see it this way. Just like the other method, you're going to stretch very slightly to make sure that the elastic is flat. And you also want to make sure that those side seams are opened up flat as you stitch. I also find with the lingerie elastic being so thin, first of all, it's easier to keep one hand in front and one hand behind to control it, but also I can't hold my hand, you know, stretching all the way back at the next quarter pin, so I'll stretch it and then I will come put a finger in so that I can hold it closer to the needle and control the fabric and the elastic a little better. And then once that has been sewn all the way around, you can go ahead and turn the elastic to the right side and stitch around again. And just like before, when I'm doing this second set of stitching, I like to position it so that one side of the zigzag is landing on the fabric and one is landing on the fabric and the elastic. Alright, finally let's talk about a fold over elastic finish. Now remember from the beginning of the video, if you're going to do this finish, you wanted to go ahead and cut the seam allowances off of the leg bands and the waistband area. Then you start just as we have with the others, where you quarter the elastic and you quarter the area where you're sewing on the band. And you'll notice with fold over elastic, first of all, usually the right side is a little shinier and the wrong side is duller. And also, if you look really closely, there's a different sort of weaving right down the middle of the elastic, which is where the elastic is designed to easily fold. So what you're going to do this time is, I find this easiest to turn the underwear wrong side out. And then you want to sew with the wrong side of the fold over elastic up, and you match the edge of your fabric right to that little channel in the middle of the elastic. So you're going to pin them together, matching up your quarter points, and then you're going to zigzag all around here, and then we'll come back, fold that elastic over, and we'll zigzag again, and that'll give you that nice elastic finish on the top. So let me go ahead and pin that in. And again, I am placing the wrong side of my underwear on top of the wrong side of the elastic. All right, let's take this one over to the machine. Okay, for fold over elastic, remember that you are keeping the edge of the fabric lined up with the fold channel on the elastic, and then you want to stitch on the fabric part. I've got this right sides up, elastic down, and just like all the other methods, you have to stretch the elastic until the fabric lays flat and stitch. Okay, once you've gone round once with the fold over elastic, then you're going to fold it over and you're going to stitch it down again. And I like to position my zigzag so that it catches one edge of the elastic and on the other side is catching just fabric, and that leaves me with a nice flat elastic seam there. Remember to finish the leg openings on your panties the same way that you did the waistband, and you're done.